Hi, and welcome to this CloudStudio demonstration. I'm Christian Estler, and I'd like to show you what CloudStudio is all about. CloudStudio is a research project at the Chair of Software Engineering at ETH Zurich in Switzerland, and this project aims to simplify the way we develop software with distributed development teams. We believe that the status quo of how software development teams collaborate today can be improved upon, and thus we are designing new approaches to collaborative development and build prototypes to evaluate our ideas. One of these prototypes is the CloudStudio IDE, a web-based development environment that runs in the browser. It covers the basic functionalities of an IDE, such as editing, compilation, and execution, but more importantly, it incorporates features that help developers stay aware of what the team members are working on. That's what we call an awareness system. But before we go into more details, let me give you a quick tour of CloudStudio, which is available at cloudstudio.ethz.ch. I log into CloudStudio with the username Stu and select the project called Coffee Demo, which simulates a coffee vending machine, and see a fairly regular IDE showing up in my browser. Over here, I can see which other developers are currently online, and we have a little chat functionality for communication. And of course, we can browse the project, meaning open files and modify the files. We can also compile the project, and because the compilation was successful, I can also run the program and get this little text output in the console. So now let me go ahead and change this program and add a new line that prints a welcome message. And what we see on the left side of the editor are these blue awareness bars, informing me that these two lines are new and currently only exist for me, but for no one else in my development team. And if I compile this program, we get an error because I did not close this string. So let me fix that. And what you see now is that as soon as the program compiles, CloudStudio automatically makes a commit to my personal repository, indicated by the now lighter blue awareness bars. Okay, before I show you more of CloudStudio, let's briefly recap some of the issues distributed teams usually face. In particular, I want to focus on how changes to the code base are synchronized between developers when using traditional version control systems. It starts with the main repository hosted somewhere on the server that contains all the project resources. Now our two developers, Stu and N, decide to contribute to this project. Therefore, both get a copy of the main repository on their local machines. Stu starts working on the project, changing and modifying the code base. But while he's doing that, these changes are only available to Stu and has no direct access to his work. Only when Stu sends his changes back to the main repository and N synchronizes her local copy with it, she can actually access Stu's work. This model of collaboration has proven to work well in many situations, but for those cases where a developer wants to get an overview of what her teammates are currently working on, it's not ideal. And what's even worse, because our developers Stu and N work in isolation on their local copies, they might both perform changes that are fine individually, but result in a conflict when they are trying to integrate them. Resolving such conflicts is often tedious and time-consuming and considered a major problem in distributed development. With CloudStudio, we are trying to address both of these problems, not knowing what other developers are working with, as well as conflicts, and we try to do this using a single, easy, and unobtrusive approach. So first, let me show you how CloudStudio enables you to see the work of your fellow teammates. So we're back in our coffee demo project, and let me compile it again and run it again. And at first I notice I'm missing a new line, but also seems that the program does not correctly calculate the cache the machine should return. So to get an idea of what's going on with this program, I have to look into this function output product. So let me open the class coffee maker and scroll down, and here we have the output product function. And as you can see, this function has no implementation yet. However, we see these orange awareness bars informing us that another developer on the team has already changed these two lines. In this case, it was a developer N. Additionally, the little yellow triangle tells me that developer N has added new lines between the current lines 53 and 54, which were not shared with the rest of the team yet. So rather than blindly making my own modifications to this function now, I can activate the view of developer N and take a look at the code she has written, but not publicly shared yet. I can go further now and test N's changes directly by clicking the Compile with Changes option, which will incorporate the currently displayed changes into my project. And of course, I can also run the program including those changes, and we see that I get the expected value for the cache returned. Now let me give you an idea of the CloudStudio architecture. CloudStudio hosts the code of all developers on a server. A project consists of a main repository and individual user repositories. These are all regular Git repositories, and it's even possible to access them and clone them using a standard Git client. The awareness system is now built on top of this infrastructure, constantly monitoring the changes to individual repositories. By default, users get access to all the changes of other users that compiled at least once. This way, when you enable the view of another teammate, it's less likely that you'll end up with incomplete code snippets. Sometimes, however, you might want to conduct an actual real-time collaborative coding session, for example, if you want to do distributed extreme programming. CloudStudio supports that as well, and I'd like to show you how it works. On the left-hand side, you now see part of my screen as developers do. On the right-hand side, you see the screen of developer N. And first, N is sharing all her changes with the rest of the team, so we're all in sync. And you can see this because the change awareness bars are disappearing. By default, the change awareness bars and view settings show the changes of other developers that were compiled successfully. In some cases, however, you might want to see what your team members are typing in real time. For this, you can opt in the Show Live Changes. And now, if you look at the right-hand screen, you see N making changes to the program. And these changes are displaying immediately in my editor here on the left-hand side. Okay, so we notice a bit of delay because there's a server round trip involved, but it's almost real time. And of course, these newly added lines only exist for developer N now. So if I go ahead and disable the live changes, all that remains are the little triangles again, informing me that new lines have been added to this class, but are not yet part of my code. Finally, let me get back to the issue of merge conflicts. In general, we can distinguish two types of conflicts: syntactic conflicts on the one hand and semantic conflicts on the other. Syntactic conflicts occur if two or more developers try to modify the same piece of code. Then, of course, a merge algorithm has no way of knowing which change should prevail, and developers have to resolve the conflict manually. Semantic conflicts, on the other hand, can occur when the changes of different developers can be successfully merged together, but the resulting program is incorrect. This could mean that the code is no longer compiling, for example, because of breaking changes to some interfaces. Or the code might compile, but it will behave incorrectly when being tested or executed. With CloudStudio, we can detect semantic conflicts early on, because we can easily compile and run a program including the changes of other developers. And in addition, the awareness system helps us to prevent syntactic conflicts as well. Let me show you how this looks like. We again have our two developer screens side by side, and currently all views and live changes are disabled. So Stu and N both see their own version of their code. Nonetheless, the orange awareness bar informs me that this line 36 has been modified. I just don't see that modification right now. So let me go ahead and activate N's view. And what I see now is that she replaced the string "thank you" to a less formal "thanks." Now let me show you what happens when I also try to change this line. You see that the awareness bar on both screens turns red because my change is introducing a conflict with a change made by N. By hovering over the awareness bar, each developer can see the conflicting version of that line. So let me revert my change. Now, we've added a mechanism in CloudStudio that allows you to prevent conflicts in those cases where you're really sure that you want to override the change made by another developer. For this, you first have to activate the view of that developer, so in my case, user N. And now, if you look at the awareness bars, while I change this line, you see we don't get a conflict, but instead my change is a regular change colored in blue, and N gets an awareness bar in orange, indicating that this line has been changed by someone else. And that's despite the fact that she hasn't even shared her own change with the rest of the team yet. Now, I can even go ahead and share my changes with the rest of the developers on the team. Nonetheless, you see that N's change remains available for her. N can now inspect that change by activating the view of the main repository or the view of Stu, or any other developer for that matter. But only when she is pulling the change from the main repository, her own version of that line will actually be replaced. Now, and all of this works without introducing a conflict between the two developers. So that is all I wanted to show you for now. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to contact any member of the CloudStudio team, or simply send us an email to cloudstudio@inf.ethz.ch. Thank you for watching.